Alright guys, another Sinister Six video here for you today, and this is for a character that honestly has been requested quite a bit, even stretching back to some of the earlier Sinister Six videos I did. Today, it's for Nightwing, and once you start to head out of the Justice League characters, a lot of villains for heroes in DC becomes very limited, very scarce. Luckily for Nightwing, not only does he share a lot of villains with Batman, but he does have his own villains as well. So I found a way to make this work and make 3 teams for him. So let's get right into it and see who is part of the first team. Team 1 consists of Blockbuster, Tarantula, Brutal, Shrike or Boone, however you want to call him, Lady Vic, and Vigilante. This is like the mob boss paid assassins team up. The leader of this particular team is Blockbuster, who I think would technically be the closest thing DC has to a Kingpin. He's really big and I believe takes some sort of enhanced drug to make him super strong as well. And above all that, he is a crime boss. I think this is the perfect situation for Blockbuster to finally reopen a chain of Blockbuster stores in Bloodhaven. No, I'm just kidding. He officially wants to be able to take over Bloodhaven for himself after a fair amount of years of constantly being thwarted by Nightwing, a person that he thinks he should be strong enough to take down, but he hasn't been able to do it. So in doing this, you almost have an Arkham Origins situation where, just like Black Mask or Joker, Blockbuster puts out this hit, but instead forms a team out of them and attacks Nightwing head on with everyone at once. And if they are successful, every single person on this team will get a certain amount of money. Tarantula, Brutal, Lady Vic, Vigilante, I'm sure they would have no problem taking on this quest for money. But then you also have Shrike or Boone, who has a relationship with Dick Grayson stretching back to when they were kids. He also believes that he is the true arch nemesis of Nightwing. He will take this opportunity to be able to go up against Nightwing, bring him down, and get paid in the meantime. A few of these characters are already employed or have been employed by Blockbuster before. So for the ones here, like Lady Vic or Boone, who are already employed, they could view this as a bonus pay. And just as I always do, if there is by chance a character within this team who grows a conscience and wants to turn on this Sinister Six, it doesn't always have to happen, but just for the fun of it, I like to pinpoint the character. When I think about it, I don't know if there is anyone on this team who would turn their back on the Sinister Six and maybe directly or indirectly help Nightwing to take them down. Tarantula in the past has done a very terrible thing to Nightwing, so I don't think that would be a character who would help him out. Boone has a vendetta against Nightwing and wants to be his arch nemesis. Don't think that's gonna happen. Blockbuster is the leader. He's not gonna have a change of heart for a character he hates. And so goes for every other character here. Their interest in money and potentially taking down Nightwing is going to be more powerful than, for whatever reason, wanting to help him. So I think what would happen here, Blockbuster would essentially be failing in his plan, and he would once again be shown up by Nightwing. He would be one-on-one defeated again, and his team would lose trust or confidence in their leader in Blockbuster, and the team wouldn't crumble on itself, but they would disband, realizing that Blockbuster probably doesn't even have the money to pay us. He's just another failure crime boss, which then leaves Blockbuster in shame again. Now for team number 2, we have Deathstroke, Psycho, William Cobb, Nightwing or Deathwing, Raptor, and Paragon. This would of course be a team employed and led by Deathstroke, considering I want to play off this idea that Nightwing's true arch nemesis would be Deathstroke. The goal of this team would not necessarily just to be to beat Nightwing, it would also be to mentally toy with the character. It would be Deathstroke wanting to get under his skin and prove that he, Nightwing, will never be better than him, Deathstroke. He will always be in the clutch touch or the grasp of Slade. And if you look at the team here that he would be creating, he'd be bringing in people who either have a close connection to Nightwing or simply hate a persona like Nightwing. So for example, Psycho, which actually means best or highest in Japanese, he has at one point been claimed to be the fiercest killer in Gotham. Now, of course, this is going to take place in Bloodhaven, but his connection to Dick Grayson is that when they were younger, they were friends. They were part of the same circus. He is a failed experiment for the Talons, and he has this twisted sense that it's because of Dick Grayson that he is who he is today. So even though that is completely false and he's wrong for thinking that, that is his reasoning for joining this team and going after Nightwing. You have William Cobb, who is the Talon, the great-grandfather to Dick Grayson. And I kind of imagine that this would take place after a Court of Owls storyline in which he does have a hatred for the Wayne family and cannot believe that his great-grandson has been aligned with Wayne and Batman and views Wayne as his father. William would have no respect for this, no understanding or the want of understanding that, and would have no problem going after his great-grandson, who in all honesty, he does not have much of a personal connection with him, but he wants to be rid of him because he does not want someone like him in his family name. There's Raptor, who at one point was a mentor to Dick Grayson, but he is a highly skilled freelance assassin. Perhaps we could work him into the story in a sense of the way he mentored or trained Dick is not the route he wanted him to take. Instead of going down the work of assassinations, he went down the route of justice, crime fighting, vigilantism. Speaking of vigilantism, then you have Paragon, a guy who absolutely hates heroes, hates masked crime fighters. In a weird form of irony, he dons a mask so that he can use his talents and abilities to take down masked vigilantes to kind of prove how their method does not work. And he would have a very solid hatred for Nightwing. Also trying to prove as well that Bloodhaven does not need someone like him. It's actually the last thing they need. For the last character that's part of this team, I think this is kind of interesting and could be a little bit of a different take on this particular character. Nightwing, Nite-Wing, he is another psychopath who believes he is Nightwing or does the good work of Nightwing, but has killed so many people in his path of what he views to be justice. Deathwing is actually somebody who has been created and brainwashed by Professor Pig through his disgusting experiments and surgeries. And what he does is he goes out also believing he's Nightwing, in which he changes his name to Deathwing and kills any criminal who stands in his way. What I would do in this situation is change the origin of a Nightwing or a Deathwing in this scenario. It would be somebody else who does believe that they are Nightwing or the definitive version of Nightwing. We have a lot of people here who are attacking Nightwing because they simply do not like who he is and want to bring him down a notch. We also have a couple of connections here to the Talons. I would have Deathstroke take some of the blood of William Cobb and find a way to extract some of the blood from Dick Grayson so that he could make a clone out of those two characters, that bond between great-grandfather and great-grandson. He would take that clone and throw him into a Red X suit, where the ploy comes into play when Deathstroke throws Red X against Nightwing. Nightwing will have flashbacks and memories to a time where maybe he had to don the Red X suit and play alongside Deathstroke against his former Teen Titans. And Deathstroke would essentially say things like, "You will always be Red X. You will always be tied to me and controlled by me." And Nightwing will think, what Robin does he have? That must be Tim or maybe even Jason inside of that suit. Who is it? And as the story would go on, he would end up finding out it is a clone of him and his great-grandfather being brainwashed into working for Deathstroke. That clone is supposed to be Deathstroke's way of saying, you are an extension of me, you will never escape me. So then the character who would end up turning on this team is very possibly Deathwing. And if there is even any form of Dick Grayson in that clone, Nightwing thinks that maybe I can call to that piece of the clone. Maybe I can get to him and convince him Deathstroke's not the way. This team's not the way. Follow my lead. Maybe then you would have Grayson and his half-clone end up teaming together to take down this Sinister Six. Now for Team 3. This one is a lot darker. It's a lot more twisted. It would honestly, I think, have to be made into an R-rated film or show if you were to make some mainstream media out of this. This team is Heartless, Professor Pig, Prankster, Mother, Victor Zsasz, and Ventriloquist, the Peyton Riley version. This team would not necessarily be a Sinister Six who is going out of their way to fight Nightwing in public, on city buildings, attacking him head on. That's not how this Sinister Six would work. A lot of them would be working from within the shadows, behind the scenes, leaving clues and just horrific crime scenes for Nightwing to be playing catch up. This story would actually be testing the detective skills in Nightwing. This would be something that he's never had to go up against before, and hopefully he never will ever again. On the surface, this team would be led by Heartless. That is the character who would constantly be conversing with Nightwing, or maybe even making themselves known to Nightwing. Behind the scenes, the real leader of the team would actually be Mother. Mother is a human trafficker who takes children and molds them in her image. Her right-hand person was Orphan, David Kane, and I would change this a little bit. I would make her right-hand person Peyton Riley, Ventriloquist. And this would be their plan. Heartless kills parents in front of their children by taking their hearts out of their chest. Professor Pig is someone who will cross any moral line, and it doesn't matter if it's children or adults in the picture. Victor Zsasz, don't really think there needs to be much said about him and how sadistic he is. Finally, here we have Prankster, who would be used as the Riddler in this situation. He would be the one to be leaving clues behind, or strange little hints and riddles to keep Nightwing on the right track, but not being able to actually figure out the truth of what is going on. I have this idea that every single character here has had rough childhoods. When they were all kids, they all experienced or went through things by adults or their parents that they should have never have had to go through when they were kids. Mother is someone who preys on people's vulnerabilities like that and utilizes these people who have gone through terrible childhoods to better her case on what her end goals are. Essentially, she has Zsasz, Professor Pig, and Heartless murdering parents, in which they steal their children in the process, deliver them to Mother, in which they will become her own personal trained soldiers. She uses Peyton Riley, Ventriloquist, as somebody who has a very strange connection to a puppet and uses the puppet almost as a drill sergeant for these children. Like I said, this storyline would be very dark, very disturbing, but I think it would be very interesting to see Nightwing go up against something like this. Especially someone like Nightwing, who can sometimes be lighthearted when going up against some of his other villains. He will not be able to have that attitude in this situation. Also, being someone who has lost his parents to a tragic accident, being raised by someone in Bruce Wayne who has experience in having his parents murdered right in front of him. This could potentially destroy Nightwing. A lot of PTSD would be hitting him in this story. Now, the character who could potentially turn on this team would be Peyton Riley, Ventriloquist. And the irony at play here would could be she uses Scarface as a puppet, but she doesn't actually realize that she is being controlled by two hands. One being the puppet who actually controls her, and the other being Mother. All of her decisions, her role part of this team, is not actually something she has any control of whatsoever. If there is a particular chance that maybe she could learn that on her own, or maybe somehow when the plot is thickening and Nightwing finds his way to her, maybe he could convince her to turn sides and pretty much offer any information that she has on Mother and the rest of this team. So there you go, guys. 3 Sinister Six teams for Nightwing. I'm not gonna lie, teams 2 and 3, the ideas I came up with has tempted me into almost making stories for these 2 teams and ideas. So maybe one day I will make these stories and even make videos about them. You guys let me know if you would like me to do something like that. What is your favorite team of these 3? And also tell me what your personalized Sinister Six would look like for Nightwing. Also let me know what other characters you'd like to see me attempt into making Sinister Six teams for them. But that is all I have for you on this video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next one, I will talk to you all very soon.